Hi, it's time for some plain facts about the UMX Timber. It's usually presented as a fun backyard flyer, and it's perfect for that by all means. But it's also a great FPV platform thanks to auto-leveling, high quality and solid predictability. We'll take a closer look at that capacity. Now, a model this size is hardly for long distance or cloud surfing, but it can be flown more or less anywhere. That's the bright side. All you need is 5 minutes right outside your own doorstep for a lunch flight or whatever.
Hi, I'm Zira. I'm here to give you a break from the clumsy human inside. Look how stable this micro is. And how maneuverable. It can be landed virtually anywhere. Even by a clumsy human.
True, you don't have a clear forward view. You have to look at the world through a spinning prop. But on these small models, that doesn't produce the horizontal line artifacts it does on larger models. That could be because the lens is so close to the prop disc. It could be because of the higher RPM. I don't know. But the prop does not disturb my image much. Because of its 2S setup, the UMX Timber would need a tiny BEC to run a small 1S all-in-one camera. They even come with DVR capability. But this plane is large for a UMX model. It has plenty of power to carry a small CCD camera with much better image quality than a normal all-in-one would give you. I chose a Runcam Micro 2 with a voltage OSD, which is very useful in a small model with tiny batteries and rather short duration. The VTX is a full-speed FSD TX200 that can easily handle 2S power, even 4S if you like. And this entire package is about 9 grams. The downside to the full speed is a rather cumbersome frequency change procedure when compared to rivals like the Ichin VTX03. But that is less of a downside than the Ichin's limited voltage range. The channel and band change procedures of this VTX require a separate video, but here's a quick tip. The instructions mention a 3-second button press to change bands, but that is not a minimum duration like it normally is. Think in terms of maximum duration this time. Keep the press time between a split second and 3 seconds. That's less than 3 seconds, and you should get a new band. There is no LED indication when you have pressed long enough, but you do get a power change indication when you have pressed too long. That can be very confusing until you figure out how it works. The camera is tilted some 15 degrees downward, like this. I prefer it that way, at least in docile sightseeing craft. Partly because I find the ground more interesting than the sky. Partly because I like to see where I'm going when I climb. And partly because too much sky in the field of view will cause many cameras to turn down their exposure and present a black landscape below the horizon, which is not very helpful. A quality CCD camera like this one has a wide dynamic range to take care of that problem, but the ground will still be more correctly exposed and easier to see if you have less sky in your field of view. And that's a plain fact.
Don't worry, there will be plenty of flight footage once the human is done talking. I'll see to that.
Fixing the VTX to the camera may be a less than ideal solution for 2 reasons. The first reason is separation. The plane's receiver unit seems to sit approximately here, around the passenger seat area of the cabin, rather close to the VTX antenna. Two different frequency bands, that's true. But the guy in here has to listen for the faraway 2.4 GHz baritone of the Spectrum radio, while the 5.8 falsetto right up here screams at the top of its voice. So that listening task would be easier if the separation was a few inches greater. But I have tested the range using the radio's reduced power setting, and I did get the required 30 yards that indicate a range of 1,000 meters under full power. The second reason is center of gravity. The UMX Timber is designed for tiny 280 or 300 milliamp hour packs, like this 2-cell. Not a very large one. But they will give you a correct center of gravity with no camera on board. But the camera, and here the VTX as well, are slightly ahead of the correct center of gravity, which is approximately here. And these batteries are good for no more than 3 or 4 minutes of normal flight. I prefer larger packs like this 550, this 500, this 750, even an 800 will fit if you absolutely have to. That will give you more than 10 minutes. Now, this is the battery size the Timber was designed for. It will fit easily far ahead in the nose section, like this. It will, however, take a lot larger batteries, like this flat 550, even this 800. But battery packs like these have to go far into the guts and rest partially on top of the receiver unit.
I may be just a cyber voice, but I am getting bored. Will he never stop yapping?
Zira, come down. I'm not finished yet. Now, when the batteries are that close to the receiver antenna, they must necessarily block a large sector of the antenna's view of the world. Or more importantly, of your transmitter. Say you're a few hundred meters out, you turn back toward yourself and you will descend. Like this. The large battery will sit right between you and the receiver antenna. Had it been an inch further forward, it would still have been in between, wouldn't it? But then it would have blocked much less of the antenna's view. And here's my point. The battery could probably have been here if the transmitter had not been here, but here's another one of the same kind, somewhere back here. Then it would have offset the weight of a larger battery farther ahead, and you would have gotten a lot more separation between the TX and the receiver for a better range, and you could have used larger batteries for better duration. That's my point. The 5 thin wires required could have run externally all the way back under a piece of duct tape. I was too lazy to make that setup. But this setup is clean, it's easy, and it works for now. The UMX Timber is not a long-distance platform anyway.
Now he tells me. And look at my voltage. But I had to get away from that human, he's so incredibly boring.
I have these tiny pinheads, these under each wing root, just as a CG marker. They are easy to feel under your fingers. I simply put the pins right through the wing at the distance behind the leading edge suggested in the manual. That's 28 millimeters for a correct CG. And then I simply fix them with a drop of CA glue. Then I just snip off what protrudes through the top of the wing. Out of the box, the UMX Timber comes with this proprietary e-flite connector. It may look like an ordinary 2S balance connector, but it's not. It comes with very small batteries, like this 2S280. I think they were originally meant for even smaller UMX aircraft. What I did, I wired this secondary connector, just an ordinary JST, in parallel with the original connector. Now I can use both types of battery connectors. That gives me more options. I can use anything from this size, the 2S280, and up to the largest ones that I can possibly fit in there, like this 2S800. Actually, that's the one we are going to fly with later today.
Or you could simply make an adapter cable. Just take the proprietary connector from an old worn-out battery. This one is actually new and perfectly okay, but it belongs to the clumsy human, so who cares? Don't snip off all 3 cables at once, that will cause a spectacular short circuit and usually a nasty fire. Go one by one, and stagger them slightly so the stumps can't short. Now remove the middle cable, mate the remaining ones with a male JST, watching polarity, and you're done. An adapter like this will also enable you to use a hobby-grade charger to discharge or cycle proprietary e-flite batteries.
Flaps. Most flap setups in RC models tend to hamper flying characteristics more than they actually help. They usually deflect way too much. Normal deflection in full-sized aircraft is 10 degrees for takeoff and 30 for landing, while the RC community tends to go for 45 and 90 degrees. That is where the flaps cease to work as flaps at all. They're reduced to mere air brakes that actually reduce lift instead of increasing it, disrupting pitch trim badly in the process. If you can't hit your landing spot with no flaps, you will definitely not hit it with disruptive surfaces like those. More on that in a later video. But that said, these flaps are not bad at all. Their deflection is more moderate than usual, though still more than in full-sized aircraft. They do stay within the realm where they actually increase section camber and lift, and they do not throw pitch trim off as much as we're unfortunately used to. I mixed in 30% down elevator with these flaps. That was all it took to keep the trim neutral in both deflection stages. I do not use them at all for takeoff.
Don't ask me how he managed to ruin his flaps just by talking about them. Amazing what that Norwegian accent can do to electronic equipment. Isn't that guy priceless? Thanks to the UMX Timber's high build quality, the problem was easy to fix. But the human still says that a model like this needs no flaps, all they do is add to the complexity and invite failures.
Now what I was going to say...
Human, shut up. We really ought to go flying now.
Yes, I guess you're right, you naggy piece of software. But it is minus 15 outside. Good job we don't have to go to the field with this one.
The plane is tracking great for its size. In spite of its short takeoff and landing capabilities, it will cruise fast enough not to get erratic in the air. This is its maximum bank angle in auto level mode. It will turn within a radius of 10 meters or so, less if you add some rudder for a coordinated turn. Of course, you can turn off auto leveling to get rid of the bank and pitch restrictions. Basically, you can choose chill mode or cool mode at the flip of a switch. Even with auto leveling off, you still have AS3X to take care of rough air. Funny how much turbulence we suddenly encounter, even though it was dead calm on the ground.
That's because a moving air mass overhead is rubbing against the still air below us. In a relatively slow plane like this one, we should take rough air as a warning that we're climbing into wind we may not be able to cope with. We covered way too much ground in the last 20 seconds, so we must have climbed into a tailwind. Now watch what happens when we turn around.
We're barely moving now. Does that mean we're gonna have trouble getting back?
No. But this is where it's important to understand the anatomy of the air. We climbed into this problem, right?
So we can just descend out of it. Will it always be like that?
Winds will normally increase with altitude. That's called wind gradient. But the situation is more pronounced today, as we have a mass of moving air, a wind rubbing across the top of a layer of still air at ground. The turbulent interface between those layers, called wind shear, warn us of that. Think of the turbulence as ball bearings between layers. This is a rather common situation after sunset, by the way.
Nice thing to be aware of when you FPV tiny planes, losing the precise ground position awareness you would have line of sight. See, now we're making headway again.
In a situation like this, it's important to use down elevator rather than throttling down. It may sound counterintuitive, but in a fixed-wing aircraft, be it a 747 or this sliver of foam, speed is governed by the elevator, not the throttle. At a given elevator setting, a given airframe will always find the same speed. Down elevator will increase speed. Throttle governs climb or descent. Choose your speed using elevator, then feed in throttle to take care of altitude. And that's a plain fact.
Okay, if I had a body, I would be cold now. Let's land and call it a day.
Right. Local traffic. Uniform Mike X-ray turning left base 33 for full stop landing at his own feet. Well, thanks for watching. See you next time.
And thanks for not falling asleep on him. I really admire you guys for that. Have a good one.